The FA Cup begins this weekend, Brendan, finally. After the Gillingham game, you said that style doesn't get you anywhere in games like that. I wonder whether that's the same sentiment you have to go into this game of this weekend.
Yeah. Listen, you of course you want to go and play your football, and that quality and hopefully talent can show up in the game. But first and foremost, whenever you're going into games like at the weekend and like we had at Gillingham, you have to do all the dirty stuff well in the game. You know, you're not just going to turn up because you think you're a Premier League player that another team will roll over. You know, Walsall have, I think they've been unbeaten in 13 games or something, and they're at home and it's a tight little stadium, and they'll want to be a team that can maybe create a scalp in the competition. So for us, it's like it was at Gillingham, and like it's been a lot of the cup competitions for us. It's about that mentality. You've got to run, you've got to fight, you've got to work, you've got to win your first balls, second balls, third balls, and then play your football.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
This weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I feel like I have to say happy birthday as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I'm sure you can get that from everybody now.
I know.
I was at Walsall, stopped at Walsall when Walsall got through in the last round, and was there with their manager when he found out that he'd drawn you guys out of the hat. And it was such a big deal to him because of financial ramifications, because it might be on TV and things like that. I just wonder, with all of that added emotion that can get thrown into a cup tie like this when there is such a difference in the positions, how can that impact a game?
Well, listen, I think that any player or team or club that's up against a so-called team from a higher division, and of course that always creates that anticipation and creates that bit of excitement, you know. So I understand that. Like I said, we prepare like it's a Premier League game, you know. So we know we have to play well and we have to work hard to get through. And if we can do that, it gives us a great chance of winning. So it's the same in any competition, but in particular in the FA Cup, you know, where the team that's maybe further down the pyramid has the chance to upset the bigger team. But for us, it's about going with the right attitude and the right mentality, which in fairness to my boys in the time here and in the cup competitions in particular, that's been the case. So we'll take that approach going into this game also.
What will you have to guard against in particular going into this game against Walsall? There's the fact that you've already gone to a lower league club in Gillingham just a few weeks ago, tight little ground there as well, difficult conditions. Does that help you prepare at all? Because it's somewhat similar type of preparation.
Yeah, well, every game is different, of course, but these obviously will play a different system, we think, to what Gillingham would have played, or MK Dons and some of the other competitions. So we have to deal with that, deal with the structural change. Normally you find in the down the pyramid a little bit, the team's very good in set pieces, so we'll have to make sure we're ready for that as well. But it's something that we've fully prepared for.
Just finally, for the FA Cup, does it? I know it already, you know, ranks highly in your priorities because of winning it. Does it rank even higher this season just because of league position and things like that? It might be your best route to possibly getting back and knocking on the door of Europe in some form or another. Yeah,
listen, it doesn't. It's no more or less. I think every year when we've entered any of the cup competitions, we've looked to be serious about it, and the objective when you start out is to get to a final. So and this is no different, irrespective of being fifth or being where we are now. So it's an amazing competition. We had the feeling of winning it for the first time, which was incredible, and now we have history in the competition. So we want to go as far as we possibly can again.
Appreciate your time, enjoy your day.
Pleasure, thank you.
Okay,
thanks.
Mark from RTV Central.
Hi, Brendan. Happy
Hi.
birthday from me as well.
Thank you very much.
Hope you're having a good day.
Yeah.
With the league position and format as it is, can an FA Cup tie such as this be a welcome break or a distraction?
No, it's neither. Really, it's the next game and the next game you want to win. For us, we go into it. It's such an exciting competition, and if you look back at whenever we won the competition, the series of games that we had to win to get there, it always starts with difficult ties. So and then those difficult ties continue right the way through. So this is the next challenge for us, and it's a game that we want to win and we want to get through into the next round in. So there's nothing in terms of a negative with it coming away from the league, because obviously we want to climb the league, but it's the next game, and the next game is always to win.
With so much at stake in the Premier League, I'm just curious about your approach with your players in terms of players' mentality. Can it be occasionally difficult for players to motivate themselves for this kind of competition when they're going through so much in the league on a weekly basis?
No, I think it's the challenge, and I think you've seen that response when we played Gillingham. We were going to, it was a difficult ground, pitch. The atmosphere was really good for the home team, but we were able to cope with that and come through. And okay, you've where we sit in the Premier League and where other teams are, the guys are always given that extra percentage in these games. So for the likes of ourselves, we have to obviously guard against that. And the players, like I said before, in the main, they've been very, very good at that. I went at Gillingham, felt really good because of the conditions, because of everything, and because clearly, the cup competition can bring upsets, which we've seen in the last round. So for us, coming to here, it's that focus, that concentration, get ready to run and get our sleeves up, and then, like I say, hopefully our talent comes through.
The further you go, obviously you've won the FA Cup here, the further you go in a competition, does it become trickier to balance team commitments, especially if you're chasing for something in the league front?
It does do if you have problems with the squad in relation to your numbers and then what you then maybe have to prioritise. I think with us here, obviously we get the game at the weekend, we don't play a game for another week or so it's not so bad. It comes, like you say, maybe a bit later on when there's a lot more games, and if you have injuries to your squad or your squad's not quite strong enough to cope on all fronts, then that's when it's a challenge. But for us, it's really just about getting to the next round, and that's the aim.
Just finally from me, going on from what Charlie said, having delivered the club's first FA Cup, do you feel a special responsibility to the fans, to the club, to always do well in this competition? Yeah,
and again, I openly said that when I came in. I came from winning trophies, and I wanted to come in here and at least be able to be competitive and challenge for them, and thankfully we've been able to do that. And winning the FA Cup for the first time it was such an iconic day, and the whole competition was amazing for us. So of course I've spoken to many supporters since that, and the feeling and what it gave them, and especially for the older generation of supporters, it meant so much. So for us to be able to do that is to give that feeling to the supporters, and especially this season when it has been tough for them, then I of course would love to do that.
Thanks, good luck, Brendan.
Pleasure, thank you.
Okay, Kirsty.
Kirsty, you're on.
Hi, Brendan. Have there been any celebrations today? Have the players sung happy birthday to you?
No, we just had a nice lunch together, and now the club, brilliant. Gifted me something really nice, and a bit of birthday cake and stuff. So no, it was all very good.
What was on your cake? A fox?
Believe it or not, there was a couple of candles and a 50. There was 50 on there.
Original.
So, yeah, well, that's it. But no, the club are great. They're very, very good at recognising when you get to certain points in your life. And listen, I'm privileged to reach 50 and grow old. I think for all of us in life, there's some people who are never fortunate enough to grow old, and so it's not something I'm scared of. It's something that to be cherished. So hopefully I can continue to get the birthdays.
What did you wish for when you blew those candles out? Any players in mind?
No. God, that took a little while, that, but bit of Sky there. You're getting that in your ear.
I mean, could Jack Harrison have been in your mind? Or is he a player that you may wish for?
Listen, I just wish for good health, and hopefully I can make 51. That was it. So listen, the club are working very hard behind the scenes to try and give the club that, give the team that boost that it needs, and we would like. So apart from that, my focus is purely on preparing the team.
But you can't tell us any specifics in terms of names, whether he's a player you've inquired about?
You're absolutely right, I can't. Yeah.
In terms of deadline day, it is fast approaching. How important will the next few days be in the context of your season?
But I think it's clear, we'd mentioned it earlier, that we would like to improve the squad. So, and as I said, the club are working hard on that. At this moment in time, for me, it's about concentrating on the players that are here and trying to deliver the best performances and results that we can.
Are you prepared for it to go down to the wire, that it could be a long deadline day?
Could be, but it may not. But I don't worry about things I can't necessarily control. So just get through each day.
And in terms of outgoings, can you tell us if there's been any inquiries about Jose Perez and whether he could be leaving?
There's been one or two inquiries for some players, but there's no movement as of yet. I think for us it's reasonably straightforward in terms of we couldn't think, certainly in certain positions, we couldn't think of players going out before we could get replacements in the positions. So there's other positions where there's more flexibility with, but at this moment in time we have to get some players in first.
Obviously there are players you may be prepared to allow to leave, but in terms of other players who you'd want to hold on to, I'm thinking of the likes of your Madisons, maybe Tillemans, have you had any bids for players like that or inquiries?
No.
And in terms of the game coming up at the weekend, Michael Flynn, Leicester will know from 4 years ago he can create a shock in the FA Cup. When he was at Newport, he did it against Leicester before your time. Is that something you're aware of, that he's a manager that's got pedigree?
Yeah, no, Michael done a great job at Newport. I used to watch them, and I obviously watched the game against Leicester, even though I wasn't here. So, his team will be very competitive, and like all teams playing against a Premier League team, they want to create the shock, and so it's not something that we won't be aware of, but we have to work very hard in the game, and like you say, Michael and his players as a home game will look for that opportunity to get through and cause a shock, but that's something that we will be ready for.